the Center Square has an exclusive with public disclosure documents obtained by my colleague TJ Martinell, our Center Square, Washington investigative reporter, concerning crafting of the recently passed income tax or the millionaire's tax, depending upon which side of that you come down on. TJ received nearly 1,000 pages of documents through a public records request from the Office of State Attorney General Nick Brown, showing communications between the AG's office and majority Democrats as they were considering how to craft Senate Bill 6346, the legislation that ultimately became our state income tax law signed by the governor. Because it's a big day at the Center Square with my colleague TJ Martinell, our state investigative reporter, getting a hold of nearly 1,000 pages of public records from the Office of Attorney General Nick Brown. Now, his beat is normal public disclosure requests. He's always putting these out as an investigative reporter. You want to find out what people are talking about behind the scenes. Oftentimes, it takes, putting in these FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, or public disclosure requests, PDRs, to get these documents back. So he's doing that all the time. He received probably the doozy of all doozies as far as public records requests back last Friday regarding the income tax. And it revealed more than he would expect to gain normally. I think that's part of what he shared with me. Here is part of my conversation earlier today with the Center Square's investigative reporter, TJ Martinell.
Yeah, so I asked for any communications and legal advice regarding the Senate version of the bill and also the House version of the bill. And what I received the other day was 988 pages of public records. And what it contains is internal communications within the Attorney General's office, communications with lawmakers, communications even with the governor's office regarding the legality of a millionaire's tax, which imposes a 9.9% tax on the income of people who make $1 million or more annually. And so, what was interesting about these records and fascinating is the the framing of the bill's purpose was very explicitly, in no uncertain terms, was to overturn the 1933 Colleton decision, which declared that income was property under the state constitution. Now, some people might wonder why that matters. Well, because uh, the voters back in the 30s tried to impose a progressive income tax, and what the Supreme Court said was you can't do that because we have a state constitutional amendment that says that property taxes have to be uniform in nature, they can't exceed 1%, and that rate is determined by class. And so also we have a definition of property that's defined to be all things tangible and intangible subject to ownership. So ever since then, the state Supreme Court has unanimously and consistently ruled that income is property under our 14th Amendment in the state constitution. What they're saying in these emails, both members of the Attorney General's office and state lawmakers, is this bill is being crafted in a way so that it will force the state Supreme Court to address the Colleton decision and determine once again, after so many Supreme Court rulings, after so many voters rejecting an income tax, whether or not income is property. And so what it means is that this bill is not intended, this millionaire's tax is not intended to generate revenue for whatever programs they're doing. Its purpose, its true purpose, its primary purpose is to overturn almost a century's worth of legal precedent in which the Supreme Court at one point said it is no longer a question to this court whether income is property.
So you can believe there will be much more to come on this exclusive story in the days and weeks to come. On our Center Square Washington page, TJ's article today revealing his discovery and the exclusive documents he obtained. I would recommend you check that out. And we're going to have continuing reaction this week from state lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, from some policy folks that are weighing in, supporters and opponents of the income tax, as well as the legal team fighting all of this. Citizen Action Defense Fund has secured former state AG Rob McKenna, as well as former state Supreme Court Justice and state lawmaker, Democrat Phil Talmadge, leading the effort, along with some folks we've introduced to you on previous episodes of Washington in Focus Daily, for the legal challenge filed in Klickitat County Superior Court against the income tax. I have no doubt that TJ's discovery and the documents he has obtained are going to be part of this legal argument moving forward. So we are excited about the opportunity to share a lot more on that in the days to come. And now, Senator John Braun, Republican from Centralia, current Republican leader in the Senate, is looking for a promotion. He is hoping to unseat Democratic incumbent Representative Marie Glusenkamp Perez in the 3rd District. That's in Southwest Washington. I spoke with him this morning about how the campaign is going, fundraising, as the incumbent has outpaced him at this point, even though he has the endorsement of President Trump, and what people are talking to him about on the campaign trail. Of course, he's running for federal office, but he's, been a state lawmaker for many years and has a prominent position as the state minority leader. He said he goes out on these campaign events and everything everybody wants to talk about is affordability or lack thereof in Washington. And the income tax, he said, is of great interest.
It is the top issue when I go to talk to people, and whether it's as a legislator or as a candidate for Congress, the top issue people bring up is the state's income tax, and we haven't heard a peep from my opponent on this tax, what she thinks about it, whether she's willing to push back with her colleagues in the Democratic Party and say this is wrong for the state of Washington. But I can tell you, overwhelmingly, this is very unpopular. Nobody believes that it's going to stay on high earners. Everybody understands that this is the first step, and the next step is to reduce the deduction so that everybody pays this in the future.
I did reach out to the incumbent's office, Representative Marie Glusenkamp Perez, for comment on this. If they respond, I will include that in tomorrow's episode of Washington in Focus Daily, as well as further comments from Senator Braun. As she's got a bigger war chest at this point, and with 6.5 months to go in the campaign, and you can bet that campaign ads are going to start fast and furious, I'm sure, over the summer. Um, it's going to be interesting to see how the race plays out. She has far more money at this point, but he's hoping that there's going to be some folks stepping up, especially given how high profile this race is. That district, that 3rd district, is a purple district. It can really go either way. And as far as members of US Congress are concerned, they believe this is a winnable race, and that's why he has the endorsement of President Trump. But it's going to come down to the final months of this campaign.